we're back, and we're very sad that it's on Victory Monday. We delayed starting the recording. Number one, because Willie slept for the first time in 3 days. But number two, we're sitting here now, and just here we were blessed with Victory Monday after Victory Monday, and now we're just a couple of losers.
It was a good run.
Where?
You know what? You know what? You know what? This is very interesting. This is very interesting because I was going to say maybe the Redskins should play the Bills in not a Super Bowl, but like for the third place trophy.
An
right?
RTC card?
Now, but that's a good comparison for these guys that think. No, okay. What if I told you? What if I proposed to you that okay, the Final Four of basketball. Let's say Duke plays Michigan, and North Carolina plays Kentucky. The two losers play for third. What's wrong with that scenario? What's wrong with like the losers of the Final Four playing for third place?
Nobody cares.
Okay, now what's wrong with the Bills lost and the Redskins lost and they're going to play? They're going to play for third next week.
Nobody cares.
What's wrong with that? Okay, now what's wrong with we have the NCAA tournament and in 2 weeks we're having the National Duels Championship in dual format?
Nobody
What's wrong
cares.
with that? There you go.
Well, I think
That's what's wrong.
That's
what's wrong with. We're going to have the national duels after the NCAA tournament. I mean, get real. Do you think like Keegan O'Toole is going to cut weight, wrestle the NCAA tournament, have a heartbreaker, and take second or third, and then in 2 weeks later, after he's a senior, he's going to be up to wrestle at national duels? Get real. Where's your brain at? It ain't happening.
Well, they've already established that it's in November. You just had to work national duels, and only you could take Bills Redskins losing and turn it into a national duels rant.
Is it not accurate?
Well, everybody's already said November is the thing.
No. This national duels.
Are you rewinding? You're rewinding past this event, and you're.
Well, hold on now. You're talking as if national duels. You're talking about as if this iteration of national duels in Tulsa is like the national duels that everybody wanted, like the thought leaders wanted. This is not what they wanted.
No, I agree, but correct. I agree, but I would suspect what they're trying to do is to take the National Duels Invitational and turn it into eventually a National Duels Championship, hoping that starts somewhere and it evolves into that, is my guess.
Right. So to make no mistake, there's still a gang of people that want a National Duels Championship, and they want it second semester, and they want it at the end of the year.
Listen, wrestling is an individual sport and will always be an individual sport. The top three things the top three things any wrestler wants, name them. Top three things any wrestler wants.
They want a state title and a national title, they want a world title.
No.
Olympic.
They want NCAA title, world title, and an Olympic title. Those are the three things that they all want. And then maybe fourth is states and fifth is a dual team title.
Well, the bottom line is you cannot stack individual and duels in close proximity. You cannot do it.
We digress. We are doing our weekend rundown. There's a lot to go through. We are going to preview Penn State, Iowa. Adam Felter's Facts is going to be on the show for that one. The group chat is already getting contentious. I suspect because Bashada is on his private plane heading down to Miami, he won't be on the show. But Felters is all on board, and it's already getting contentious. So that is going to be a good show.
Yeah. Adam texted. I texted Adam, and I said, Adam, you have to be on the preview show for Iowa Penn State. It's a must. He said, I'm in. And then he responds, and you better buckle up because I'm not going to blindside you. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm coming at you.
Yeah.
But okay, what are you coming at me about? Because that's blindsiding.
Yeah. Well,
Uh, Dr. Don, I made Dr. Don's 20 wing recipe this weekend, and it came out phenomenal.
Don's the wing king. He's absolutely. My wife makes one of his recipes all the time, and every time Becca's like, I can't believe how good these wings are. Don is the wing king. He has his title.
The wings actually saved. The wings actually saved the day because the Redskins did not perform well.
Yeah, we're not going to talk football. This is a wrestling podcast. Nobody cares about football. I don't even like football. So let's talk wrestling. And we are a little bit late. Chael Sonnen did tweet me.
Basch texted us. Basch texted us a minute before halftime. Well, it was a good season. This game's over.
I did not say it was a good season. I said it's over. I did not say good season. I said it's over.
It certainly was
I
not
knew
over.
it. Listen, we were down 7-0. We scored 10 unanswered, and that was great. As soon as we gave up 14 unanswered, I knew it was over. That was it. But we're not talking football. This is a wrestling podcast.
Okay.
I don't even like
We're
football.
talking wrestling. Let's talk before we get into the actual. Oh, I got a good couple nuggets. Today's Nugget Monday. I got a good couple nuggets. That the wrestling world. Okay, a little bit they don't know about, but also a couple that they probably are the information's out there, but they didn't see yet. Okay, number one, let's talk a little about a little injury stuff. I talked to Lehigh. Lehigh hopes to have Crookham back. It's possible to have Crookham back. He is not completely out yet.
But to be fair, I said that from day one because the whole issue was Minio said, according to his family, he's out for the year. And right away, the Lehigh coaches told Pat, that's fake news. They told John Kozak, fake news, he's coming back. The Lehigh coaching staff has been optimistic from day one that he's coming back. I don't think that's new news. I think they're just reiterating that their hope is he's back for the postseason.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm not hating on Lehigh staff. I'm not hating on Pat Minio. I'm not hating on John Kozak. I mean, I'm not hating on anybody. All I'm saying is I talked to him. That's the update I got.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I guess that's not breaking news. That's not like a nugget, but it is a confirmation of what stuff is out there. Okay, so that's one. Here's one that is not out there yet. Trey Munoz is banged up. He has not wrestled in the second semester. So Trey Munoz is a possible. He's probably going to take a medical, which is very interesting on a couple. He
has not competed since the Cliff Keen, has he? That's right.
So there's a lot of stuff going on with that. Number one, it's another spot at 197 that sort of opens up, right? We got Rocky Elam, and 97 is completely loaded this year. But it's another spot at 97 that opens up after Elam's out. After did somebody else come out? No. But now you have another contender, a podium contender, in Munoz coming out. It's also interesting in that if Munoz does, in fact, take a medical, he can come back and he could go 84 next year. Part of the reason why you go 97 this year, you have Starachi and Keckeisen, right? And so if Munoz can come back next year, and he can come back at 84, he's already A8 at that weight. It gives it makes 84 stronger after losing two absolute studs. But it also creates a really, really nice back half of the lineup for Oregon State. Oregon State a little down this year, but the back half of their lineup would be Matty Olguin, Trey Munoz, Justin Rademacher, Aiden Ateo. I mean, that's a really great run in the back half. Another another nugget of Oregon State. Joel Adams, Cadet Greco world champion, Joel Adams, who originally committed to Michigan, is at Oregon State. He's going to be at Oregon State next year. So,
Interesting. That's a good get for them.
it's a really good get for them. And when we can get into it, but Ethan Styles has had a really good year at 57 as a freshman. I think he had 2 losses. One was to Antrell Taylor in overtime. One was to somebody else who was really good. He doesn't have a whole lot of wins because he's just basically beat who he's supposed to beat and lost who he's supposed to lose to. But he moved down to 49. So now, if you get Styles in there as a sophomore next year and Adams in there as a freshman at 57, and then the back half of the lineup that I talked about, that's a really strong lineup.
Yeah. I'll add in 2 notes since this kind of where we're at in the show. Number 1, 97 even will be interesting next year because you'll have Buchanan graduates, Cardenas graduates, Beard, Serber, Andy Smith, Isaiah Salazar. So you'll have all those seniors out of there. You have Ferrari returning, Barr returning, Rocky Elam returning. Rocky Elam, by the way, there was a lot of Kansas City fans that were giving me crap last night, and that's fine. I was very hard on the Chiefs and the refs last night, all over Twitter. A couple of absolute bozos. One guy who told me he feels bad for me. He goes, "You're a full-time wrestling guy. You're a loser." One guy told me I'm a wrestling coach. I shouldn't cry like this. So some absolute bozos. But I was going back and forth with Rocky last night because he's just one of the nicest kids on planet Earth. And even like through the we were texting during the game, and he was nervous when the Bills got up, and he's like, "Listen, for either of these 2 quarterbacks, when they have the ball, the game's not over." But the other, piggybacking off of that, Keegan O'Toole did a video yesterday, and we were talking about it in our group chat because he did an interview at the intermission on UFC Fight Pass. They did the Missouri duel, and we were kind of talking about it because it's like, number 1, he confirmed he's out until the end of February. So he's not going to see Hamidi in the duel. So he's not going to be
hopeful. He sounded hopeful that maybe he could get back for one last home duel.
Yeah. But it doesn't sound good for him. And honestly, I will say his body language and just his lack of excitement, I'm not optimistic for him in the postseason. He's an all-time great. He's got a great career, but just kind of seeing it honestly, watching it was like a 3-minute interview, watching his body language, hearing how he was talking, it seems like he's just done with college and wants to go win some world titles. It's just, I get that vibe, and I'm sure, he's going to be off the mat. If he doesn't return to the end of February, he's going to be off the mat for 2 months. I'm sure that doesn't help. You're just kind of on the sidelines, but yeah, it was definitely a weird interview. Like,
I certainly see. I watched the interview, and I certainly see what you're talking about, and I certainly read the tea leaves. And I am probably the captain of the team that says I have concerns about these 5th, 6th, 7th year guys. I always worry about them. I worry about their motivation. Hungry dogs hunt. Once you've been through it that many times, you start being like, okay, been there, done that kind of thing. Where's the fire? Are they banged up? Did they have this many, you have this many folk style bouts under your belt? And I am the captain of, I worry about upperclassmen, 5th, 6th, 7th years guys. Okay. So I certainly understand that. And I certainly understand Keegan's getting married. He's building a house. And I certainly understand the body language in the video. He wasn't, he was sort of demure, kind of quiet-ish.
Stoic, yeah.
That being said, this is a guy who just beat Levi Haynes. I'm not writing him off.
2 things. I'm not writing him off, but also, yes, he did beat Levi Haynes, and he could absolutely win the whole thing. I wouldn't be surprised. The guy has a third place finish. He's an all-time great. we also both came on this show after he wrestled Levi Haynes and said after that match, neither one of us are more confident in one guy over the other based solely on that match. So,
Sure.
you know, it's going to be interesting. It's definitely one thing to note going into it. You know, I say this every year. I think Penn State has an edge in close matches in March because Penn State has proven over the past decade they have their guys ready. And I think that, you know, pushes me again closer to that side for this weight. But it was just an interesting tidbit. I sent it to you guys, and I'm like, do you guys see this too? You know, or is this just me? And there was a couple other people I was DMing with and stuff, and somebody sent it to me, and they're like, doesn't Keegan seem a little off? And I'm like, I think so. I said it could absolutely be over-reading body language, could absolutely be, you know, reading into it, but...
Yeah, that's a tricky thing, right? It's like, you know, we're in the era of the most wrestling media that we've ever had. And so we have the most information we've ever had. And still it's not a ton, but when we get it, when we get when we get Keegan on video talking, what are we going to do? We're going to read body language. We're going to read the temperature in the room, right? And it could be something, it could be nothing, but yeah.
I just thought it was worth noting since we were talking about injuries.
Speaking of media, it's been an interesting week with sort of the Jet Strickenberger celebration, a couple celebrations, Gabe Arnold calling out Starachi for the second time in his career. Starachi responding this morning. Gabe celebrating at the duel. Keeter with a pretty boisterous celebration. Rutgers and Coach Goodale celebrating. It's been an interesting week to read these kind of tea leaves and know how to react to them and what to make of them.
I've got some notes we can go through as we go through certain tools, and I definitely think I know Felters has some comments. He's got some things, I'm sure, you know, and we'll get to there. I think with Gabe, there's two different things. I think there's his post-match reaction we talked about, and then also him and Carter, which I think, you know, we can talk about today when we get to Iowa, or we can save it for the preview show. But yeah, I've said it for years.
Yeah,
I think wrestling's taking more of an MMA route. It's just it is what it is.
Maybe.
Guys want to become a character. Guys want to get NIL money. We're seeing an increase in celebrations. Well, you have more wrestling media, you have social media, you have NIL, you have people wanting to be characters, you have watching what UFC stars are doing. So nobody should be surprised by whether you like them or hate them, which I'm vocal about the ones I like, vocal ones I don't like. Regardless, nobody can be surprised as to why we're seeing more of them.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's part of that. Maybe it's part of the marketing, promotion, show your emotion types thing. I don't know, but at the same time, some of them come off a little false, bro.
And we can talk about those, definitely.
False or forced, you know.
Yeah. All right, let's go through some duels.
All right. Wait, hey, there's two big pieces of wrestling news that we have to talk about before we talk about results. One is the Ivy Leagues came out and said we're not revenue sharing. Okay, so that's a big piece of news, right? Not that it's surprising, but they're not doing it. So they will not be in the NIL type. Now they can still do NIL. It's still legal. That's Supreme Court binding, right? Is it not? But what they're saying is if we have network TV money, if we have rights, we're not sharing it with the athletes. Like, it doesn't go to the athletes.
Now, doesn't that, I could be wrong here, doesn't that have an implication on NCAAs eventually?
Well, and this is what I was ranting and raving about ever since the NWCA convention, is that they were saying Anthony Holman, who is the I forget what his title is, but he's like the highest guy at NCAAs for wrestling. He's like the president of wrestling at NCAAs. He said that the conferences or the schools that do not opt into revenue sharing will not be allowed in the same NCAA championship as those who do. Now, once again, the overwhelming reaction to that was, well, we'll figure it out. Well, that's not 100% true. Well, we're not sure that that's accurate. Like, okay, but figure it the hell out. Like, I do not, and unless there's some things going on behind the scenes that I am unaware about, and they're really digging into this, and they're really being proactive, and they're really making sure that this is not an issue. I don't think that's going on. And I think that is really terrible on wrestling in general and the wrestling coaches, because you got to figure that out. I mean, are you telling me that they're just operating, the wrestling coaches that is, and maybe the NWCA is operating on a thing where it's going to be fine? Like, you got to figure that out, because if you're figuring that out, you're talking about basically the Big Ten, the power conferences having one NCAA championships, and the subdivision having another. You're talking about EIWAs, Ivies, Max, maybe SoCon. You're talking about having an NCAA championship full of 40 teams and another NCAA championship Division I full about 35. And so you really got to figure, and that's a disaster, by the way. That is a disaster for the product. It's a disaster for NCAA's best, the world's best product in the NCAA championship. I mean, who wants to see an NCAA tournament where Meyer Shapiro is in a different division? Who wants to see an NCAA tournament with Ryan Crookham in a different division?
Well, let's not forget, half of there's the four most recent four-time NCAA champs. Half of them came out of the Ivy League. Yanni and Dake.
Right.
Imagine not having those guys there.
Right. So that's something that they really have to figure out. And so, I mean, I am of the opinion that can absolutely positively not happen, because then what you're essentially going to have is, let's be clear, let's be honest.
Time out. Sorry, 2 out of the last 5, because didn't
Brooks?
No, it was Dake, Stieber, Yanni, Strachey, Brooks. So 2 out of the 5 Ivies.
Listen, you cannot say, oh, well, it's fine. The Big 10, the Big 12, some of us will be in Division I revenue sharing, and some of us will be in Division I non-revenue sharing. You don't understand, bro. You can think that's good. And I've had Division I coaches from the non-revenue side of things from EIWA schools say, well, it's fine. It actually will be a little bit more competitive. Oh, yeah, really? Because this is how it will really be viewed. It'll really be viewed as Division I and Division II, right? Like, nobody's going to pay attention to it. Let's be honest. No, we're going to pay attention to Division. We're going to pay attention to the one that the Big Ten's in. That's what it's going to be. And so 100%. You can say we can be more competitive. Okay, you can be more competitive in the one that eventually nobody's going to pay attention to. That's just the facts. That's just the reality of the matter. So you really got to figure that stuff out. And so the Ivy Leagues come out and say this. And so, not that it's surprising, but it is now official. Yeah. Another tidbit on the NIL revenue sharing front. And I'm allowed to share this. I don't know if I'm allowed to share it, but
but he's gonna.
So I was told that all informed. This is going to Big 12s. We're talking about Big 12s. And I'm told that all the Big 12 parties are aware of this. And so I am not talking out of turn here. I am not sharing something that they don't know. And so it's kind of safe to say. Any of the schools that currently are in the Big 12 conference championship, if they do not opt into revenue sharing, they are kicked out. Okay? They are kicked out of Big 12 wrestling championships. So, what that means is mostly everybody that falls under that bucket is affiliate members, because Big 12 has a lot of affiliates. And we're talking about North Dakota State, South Dakota State, UNI. Okay? Now, if they are kicked out, what conference do they go to? Now, it sounds like sort of maybe a bad thing. I am of the opinion that the EIWA was a little too big. I mean, they had like 20 schools, right?
Yeah.
So now they have EIWAs and Ivy Leagues are split, which I think is probably better. I am of the opinion that the Big 12 kind of got bloated. And now they're going to have the non-revenue sharing schools out. I think that's kind of a good thing. However, the question becomes, where are those Big 12 non-revenue schools going to go? Well, how about the Pac-12? How about whatever the Pac-12 decides? So I think it's actually a good thing. Arizona State is now in the Big 12. You have Arizona State, Oklahoma State, ISU, right? Where if you take those non-revenue sharing Big 12 schools and add them to the existing Pac-12 conference, which goes like Oregon State, Cal Poly, UVU could be in there, right? If they're not revenue sharing, Cal Baptist could be in there if they're not revenue sharing. It could create a really strong Pac-12. You know, you have Northern Iowa and Oregon State, North Dakota State. Right?
When are they going to like announce this, or when will this start coming out? Like, if
I don't know.
That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
To have these things just floating in the ether of could happen is so crazy.
I know. So to me, they are monumental NCAA wrestling stories. I mean, they are huge stories. I mean, we're talking about conference realignment. They are huge, and they're just not out there. Those stories aren't out there yet. So I thought that would be a big drop on the show.
Yeah, that's good intel.
Now, finally, can we talk about wrestling yet, or do we have to hit this stupid headgear toss?
Let's talk about it when we get to the duel, just so we get into the flow of the results. Yeah.
Okay. So now let's go. The weekend that was Friday night, Nebraska over Michigan, 38-6.
Hold on.
I thought.
Okay, go ahead. I don't want to skirt past that.
Skirt past what?
Nebraska got the door kicked out of them from Penn State, and they turned around and wrestled incredible. And I know Michigan is having a down year. Michigan stinks 100%. But I thought Nebraska turned around and wrestled awesome against Michigan, where you got Caleb Smith, Tech, Jacob Van D, Tech, Brock Hardy, Major, Ridge Lovett, Tech, Antrell Taylor, Penn, Chris Minto beats a ranked guy, Lenny Pinto, Major, Silas Allred, Tech, Cardenas goes out and beats Camden McDaniel 5-2, who should probably be redshirting, and then Heinzelman beats Andrews. But I thought Nebraska looked awesome, rebounding off that Penn State performance.
I think there's so many things to talk about here. Number one is Nebraska is very clearly, I mean, to me, they're the most transparent team in terms of they are as good as their training cycle is currently. Like, they're always really good at Cliff Keen. Always really good. Like, oh my God, they're really good at Cliff Keen. They are always in the first week or two of January. What the hell's wrong with Nebraska? Right? And so for them to, I think it's very clear that whatever their training cycle was coming into here was really on point.
Even
Right?
like you mentioned Van D having weight issues, and it's like, listen, Michigan's 25 pounder is not necessarily an All American, but
Caleb Smith.
no, I'm saying Michigan's 25 pounder. Like Caleb, what did I say? Did I say somebody else for weight issues?
Yeah, you said Van D. You meant Caleb.
Yeah,
Smith.
Caleb Smith has had, like, you've mentioned it, where some of these losses you've attributed it to weight, and it's like, man, here they started with 25, and he comes out and gets the pin in under 4 minutes. Like, he looked good. So like you said, a lot of Caleb Smith's bigger matches come down to weight, and it's good to see even a match like this that, again, I know it's not the absolute best caliber opponent, but he looked great.
Well, okay, so one thing the training cycle thing is one thing. The second thing is they got beat up by Penn State, okay? But the narrative was from the media, on social message boards, Twitter, the narrative was that, hey, Nebraska kind of wrestled Penn State kind of as tough, right? So there is a thing where Nebraska, even though on the scoreboard, team score, they got the doors kicked in a little bit, there was a thing where they could say, you know what, we feel pretty good about ourselves. We wrestled Penn State pretty tough. I talked to Manning right after the duel, and I said, hey, it could have went that way. Good for you for like firing your guys up. He goes, oh no, our guys did not feel like a valiant effort in Penn State. We felt embarrassed, and so we were fired up to get back on the saddle.
Yep.
And to me, that's a good job. That's a good mentality by the athletes, and probably a good job by the staff to say, don't feel good about yourself because Caleb Smith had a close loss, because Brock Hardy had a close loss. Be pissed off that you didn't win, right? And so, now, again, this year's Michigan squad is not comparable to Penn State, and they're a little down. But still, the number of points they put up 13 points in 7 of 10 bouts, right? They were putting up teams, and they were attacking. And so I just thought it was a really great performance by Nebraska. Penn,
Listen,
by Van D.
It was good.
Brock Hardy getting a late takedown to make it a major over Lemley, who he's lost to before. Antrell Taylor with a pin over Saldate. Christian Minto, who wasn't the clear starter, he's a freshman. Him beating Mantanona like a blue chip kind of recruit. Minto's second ranked win in as many matches. Pinto hasn't looked great, but he puts up 23 on Joey Walker, who's solid. Silas Allred, who hasn't been great, putting up a tech on Jaden Bullock, who has looked good recently. I thought up and down it was a really good performance, really active performance by Nebraska.
Yeah, and I had the minus 11.5 for this duel, which was the easiest win of all time. But it kind of came back around because they were so dominant. I said this team's going to beat Michigan State by 100 on Sunday. But then, of course, stupid me, I've told myself, Justin, don't bet those big lines, especially when you don't know the lineup. And so I'm like, hold on. So I said, don't lay 40 points even with Michigan State, because Nebraska rests one guy and you're screwed. Sure enough, Nebraska rests one guy, Antrell Taylor, And I'm like, that's the duel right there. Where it's like,
Yeah.
you got to wait to see the lineup. Betting makes it so much fun. I understand some people don't like the betting aspect of it. But when you have, I don't know. And I don't care what amount. I don't care if you bet $5 or whatever you bet. It makes it more interesting when it's like, you're rooting for a major instead of a decision or an upset meet. Like, it's very fun for a duel. Like, if you're a fan of one school, it makes it so much more fun to tune into a duel.
It's so much more interesting, right? I mean, you don't take the bathroom break when it's number 18 versus number 26 because it's important to you.
Listen,
right?
the most important match.
A lot of Thursday nights, or a lot of Monday nights where I don't really care about the football teams, but I'll put $50 on a game to make it a little interesting.
Right, 100%, and that's like for wrestling. And listen, I think the max is it's literally $100 or a couple $100 usually. So even if you want to, you can't bet that much, but it just makes it fun. But it was Nebraska's dominant performance. They beat Michigan 38-6, 11.5 point favorites, and I'm like, oh, they're gonna crush Michigan State. And then Taylor's set. Which, by the way, also breaking news: James Rowley just officially announced he will also be out for the rest of the season due to injury.
Has he wrestled second semester? He's wrestled second semester.
He has not
right?
wrestled since the Cliff Keen.
He hasn't?
Nope.
And another one is who am I missing? So somebody just also announced. Oh, I'm spacing it. So you have Munoz and you have Rowley. Oh, Soldano. Soldano said that he got a concussion first semester, and he can't make it back second semester, so he's going to end up applying for and probably getting a medical.
Wow.
I mean, frankly, it's like if you don't wrestle second semester and you want a medical, you're probably getting it.
Yeah.
Right? It's just that easy nowadays. Yeah, and another thing about what makes it difficult about wrestling and betting lines, and somebody, we talk about betting a lot on here, but probably not as much as we should. There was a couple comments after the shows that they'd like a show just on lines each week. That'd be. I'm down to do that.
I would 100% do it. The problem is, at large, the lineups. I would 100% do it if we got. Like, a lot of times, betonline.ag, who you can bet with, I've been using them for a decade. This is not a paid ad. This is not. I've been using them. You can deposit crypto. It's very easy. They usually come out like the day or so before, and there's like 7 or 8 lines. The problem is the lineups. Even and don't get me wrong, if it's like Michigan State plus 40.5, you can take the 40, and in wrestling, you can look at it and say, hey, if Nebraska sits a guy, I really like the 40.5, I'll take a chance. But as far as analyzing the lineup, and we're going to do it with Penn State, Iowa. Penn State came out with Circus Sports as a 20-point favorite. Penn State is a 20-point favorite. And WrestleStat, take it for what it's worth, has the duel 27-3. So it's not far-fetched, but we're going to get into that when we preview the duel this week.
Yeah, there's two things. There's two reasons why there's a little difficulty in doing a pure betting line show, but I think we should do it.
I'm down. I'm
100%
down.
I'm down to do it regardless. But there's two hurdles that come along with that. Number one, often the lines come out way late in the week.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And number two, you're never quite sure who's going to go, but that's going to be that's a forever problem. That problem's not going to go away. NCAA is not going to mandate that you submit your lineups and stick to them.
Yeah, and we'll try it like this week or next week. Like Penn State, Iowa is obviously a big one we're going to cover in and of itself of the show, but we'll try when the lines come out if we can time a show, even like a 20, 30-minute show of saying, like, I know that, so I was 4-0, and then I lost Nebraska on Sunday, so I was 4-1 on the weekend, and a lot of it when you're talking betting and seeing is like, where is maybe the worst line versus who do you really like. But if you really like a program, like a lot of times when I'm betting wrestling specifically, it's a combination of where I think the line might be wrong and obviously what program. Like if you like Iowa to win 3 matches, you should take the 20 points. Obviously Penn State is not going to win by 20 if Iowa wins 3 matches. So some of it's playing the line and some of it's playing the lineup and the team. So it'll be good. We'll definitely try to do a separate standalone betting show. And again, you don't got to bet much to make it fun. Like whatever makes it interesting enough for you to care. And that you're okay with losing if it loses, obviously.
Next up, after we hit Michigan, Penn State, or Michigan, Nebraska, there was a couple interesting results in Penn's 24-20 win. Penn won 24-20 over Columbia. Penn won the duel, but a couple good wins for Columbia. I've been really high on Nico Incontrera. In fact, Crystal Ball is going to come out, and I am going to have Nico Incontrera on the podium. But Jack McGill from Columbia beat him 14-3. To me, I didn't watch the match. I got to go watch it. That result, it just boggles my mind. Like I cannot wrap my brain around it. Jack McGill over Nico, 14-3. Nick Fine also pinned Mac Hale. So good 2 wins back-to-back for Columbia there. 24-20. Penn wins the duel, though. Virginia Tech, 32-15 over Duke. You say, how did Duke score 15 on Virginia Tech? Well, Virginia Tech had a couple backups in at 49. No Caleb Hansen at 57. No Hippolito. And Duke won decisions there. Iowa State, 25-6.
Real quick. Where is Caleb Henson? We haven't seen him in well over a month.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's injury. He's been a little dinged up. I've heard from a source or two that he's been a little dinged up. I always wonder with Caleb. Caleb wrestled 52 in high school, right? And so you wrestle 52 in high school, and what weight do you project him at? I always had him 49-57. And so for Caleb, to cut to the chase, I always wonder if he's going to go up to 57 eventually. I always wonder if 49 is a tough pull. He's very lean. His kids slapped together. Maybe it's a weight thing. Maybe it's like, okay, I don't need all these dates to be cutting. And so I don't know if that's a thing, but it could be.
It will be interesting to see in a year like this, especially. You talk about Ryan Crookham maybe coming back just for the postseason. Keegan O'Toole, 2-month layoff into the postseason. How will these guys perform who are on the sidelines for the majority of the season? Can they get their conditioning up? We'll talk about it with the Iowa match because, of course, some knucklehead when I said, well, we'll save it. We'll save it for the Iowa match. But it will be interesting. It will be interesting to see how these guys. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, when we're doing postseason preview shows, and I'm not so high on these guys who just had 2 months off, this is why, because it's such a question mark.
Well, I think a lot of this is going to come up if we do a crystal ball. Normally, crystal ball should have already been out because we're almost into February, but.
Well, we should do Crystal Ball and Penn State, Iowa as one big show. First half Crystal Ball, second half Penn State, Iowa.
That'll work. But typically I would have already had my January Crystal Ball out, and I think a lot of what you're talking about is going to come up in that. Like if Crookham is out, if Crookham's in, he's clear number 1. I don't care how much he's wrestled this year or not. If he doesn't, I mean, it's anyone's game. I mean, Drake probably leads, but again, we'll talk about that.
And 33 is also 33. And again, we'll talk about this, but it's so hard not to. 33 and 74 are very, very different. when for Keegan O'Toole to have a returning national champion Levi Haynes, you got Dean, who's been wrestling so awesome, very different than 33. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I mean, if Crookham's in there, he's the clear guy. If Crookham's not in there, then Drake leads. But Drake also, like he lost to Tyler Knox. It's almost anyone's game.
Yeah. No, I agree. I've been saying it all year. Anybody can win any weight.
And it's truly a fascinating season like that. I mean, obviously,
I agree.
125. Obviously, 125 is kind of anybody's game.
That's what I've been saying. There's no favorites at 125.
Yeah. At 133 minus Crookham, I mean, on paper. Now, you could say if Crookham's in there, somebody else could certainly win. Sure. But on paper, if Crookham's in, he has to lead the pecking order. If Crookham's out, it's anybody's game. So your first two weights, anybody's game.
Yeah.
Iowa State over Oklahoma 25-6. Lorenzo over Perryman. It's been Perryman. Terrakina is going to be out for a while. Evan Frost, Majors Belton. Jacob Frost wrestling really well. Beats Moshe Schwartz. And I think we'll talk about Iowa State, Oklahoma State as well. I mean, at this point, with Echemendia out, I know it's sort of crazy, but Jacob Frost is wrestling so well. I mean, I understand if Echemendia is down and beats him out. Echemendia is a clear kind of proven AA last year, but man, whoever goes for 41 with Jacob Frost's emergence, Iowa State really they have a clear podium contender in Echemendia, and all of a sudden an outside threat in Jacob Frost. 149 Pinero Johnson over McDougald. Some backups in at 57. MJ Gatan beat Gavin Sachs. Along with Nico Incontrera losing the back half of contenders. This again, crystal ball stuff. The back half of contenders for the podium for 74 is a mess. Evan Bachman won. Scon won. Mora over Herrera. Drexel beat Bucknell 20-13. Illinois beat Maryland 33-7. Bird over Braxton Brown. Pacino over Lemus. Cannon Webster pinned Cal Miller. Ethan Miller beat Crazer. Jackson Smith beat Edmund Ruth 4-3. Luffman over Neville's 4-2. NC State 22-13 over Pittsburgh. I thought this could be even closer. I thought NC State wrestled really well. V-Rob over Baven 6-5. Biskins over Solomon. Ed Scott beat Dylan Evans. Fields over Kessler. Reese Heller beating Fishback 6-2, and Luca Augustine beating Singleton 3-1 in OT. So I thought, again, like Penn winning the battle, or Penn winning the war, but Columbia winning a couple good battles. NC State won the war here, but Augustine over Singleton, Reese Heller over Fishback. Some good individual results for Pitt. Trumbull major Dylan Pitzer. Good win there. Minnesota 39-3 over Wisconsin. Wyoming 25-10 over Utah Valley. Penn State beat Rutgers 35-3. The only loss for the Nittany Lions was Lilladal losing to Peterson on a late takedown by Dean.
So we'll talk about a couple of things this duel. Number one, the second Lilladal lost, I got 500 tweets because I had just said I think Lilladal and Ramos are going to go into the postseason undefeated. We had a 15-minute argument that more people thought was interesting than not. So I'm glad people actually enjoyed the argument. But a couple things about this duel. Number one, Dean Peterson's tweet after the match was the dumbest thing I've seen in social media all year.
That's another one. That's another one that I forgot at the top of the show when you talk about Jet Strickenberger's celebration, this guy's celebration, this guy's call out.
I did not care about Dean Peterson's celebration as much as the tweet. The celebration, whatever. It's a big win for Dean. Everybody was, except for Rutgers fans, were high on Luke Lilladal. I get his celebration. I understand that. The tweet that he put out as soon as the match ended was so dumb to say, like, Lightning Dean or whatever, and then he's like, hashtag F Penn State. And
Well,
it's
I
like,
like the faster than lightning part is pretty creative. I like that part.
I don't care about that as much as the couple
I
things.
mean,
Number one,
in context, if you don't know, Luke Lillidahl's nickname, as
Lightning
created
Luke.
kind of by Cornell Robinson for a few years, has been Lightning Luke. Okay, you beat Lightning Luke, and you respond quicker than lightning. Pretty cool, pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah, the F Penn State when
Right
number
when you got beat
one
35-3.
you got beat 35-3. You're the only kid who won the entire duel or won a match in that duel for your team. Like, maybe be more about the program and be like, hey, my squad, my team, my guys, we're getting the doors beat off of us. Like, whatever. And literally, his guys are wrestling. He does the tweet at like 8:20 or 8:25. So I think probably like Davis and Shaver around that time are still wrestling. Like,
Yeah.
bro, cheer your teammates on. Like, and this isn't a Penn State thing. This is just, when I saw that, I'm like, ugh. And he must have known he was wrong. He deleted it. So it is what it is. I think he obviously knows it was dumb.
Dean's a good kid. I mean, most of these kids that
This
do
isn't about him being good or bad. This is This is just commenting again on the media and the social media side of it. It was a dumb move, and he obviously knows that by deleting the tweet.
Here's the thing though. Like, I drop F bombs constantly. I tweeted F words yesterday, and I know it rubs people the wrong way sometimes. I frankly don't care, but I don't like kids. I don't know. I don't like kids using F words. I probably shouldn't use F words.
Well, listen,
swearing. But in the same token, Penn State, rightfully so, they get all the love. They get all the hype. They get all the adoration. Maybe some more kids should say F Penn State. Like, you can win other places. I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree that.
Well, a couple things.
I kind of like it. I kind of like that. I don't know.
Saying it when you lose 35-3 has a bit of a
Right.
sting. Number two, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, Willie, as soon as I put out anything positive about Penn State, Glazer, you glazed them, get off Penn State's dick, stop riding Penn State. So, you're not allowed to say good things about Penn State because it's like, oh, Penn State, next topic. Why? Why can't you cover a great team? So I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, half these people get bent out of shape if you say anything positive about Penn State. Penn State is one of the greatest, most successful dynasties currently in college athletics. I think you should talk about that. So, again, I think the timing of it...
Even when I say, I don't know, I'll put out a stat, like, Penn State is something... incredible stat. I'll even get it too. Like, oh, stop fluffing them. Like, they're putting up historic numbers. I'm not allowed to tweet that they're putting up historic numbers.
I know, it's crazy. So it's like, again, the bigger thing here was like number one, the timing of it, and number two, it's like, again, I don't care that he celebrated. It's a big win.
Hey, I'll tell you what, you've done it though. Remember Big Tens? Michigan, 12 wins in a row. Michigan, 13 wins in a row.
No.
You're like, oh, Michigan, Willie. Like, it was incredible.
Well, two things here. First of all, that was NCAA's, and we were sitting on press row, and as you were doing it, you were looking at me like a schmuck with a smirk, and you would look at me.
That was Big Tens. That was
at NCAA's Soriano's year. We were at press row, and you kept looking at me, giving me that stupid grin, and then tweeting it. But that's in really jest. I don't care if you say, like, you also get Husker Willie, Penn State Willie, Michigan Willie.
I love every team. I'm biased towards every team somehow.
Like Felters randomly showing up a picture with David Taylor.
Interesting, the Penn State Rutgers duel. We're talking about how it's like anybody's game and everything's flipping and flopping, and so Dean goes out and beats Lillidahl a week after losing to Nicolar, who lost to Joey Cruz, right?
Who looked awesome in the Iowa duel, by the way.
Who looked great this weekend. And then at 33, Davis beating Shawver. Now, Shawver has had some really weird losses, including to TK Davis of Gardner Webb. But that was a 2-1 match, no takedowns.
Real quick though,
It's 33 as well. Like anybody's game, really. I mean,
well,
yeah.
two things about this. Number one, I'm glad Rutgers wrestled Shawver because there was talk, and I was getting DMs that like I'm hearing that Rutgers might let Mason Gibson wrestle because the McCourt kids are going to be there. Don't know if we're going to see Shawver. He's got a big match on Sunday. And so I had tweeted out, like, of course, this is always like speculation. Hopefully we get this match. And somebody said, like, why wouldn't we? And that was the speculation. So I am glad that Rutgers wrestled Shawver. It was a close match. But going back to Peterson Lillidahl, does that change? And we can talk crystal ball on that show. But does that really change much for you? Like, I'd pick Lillidahl to win the rematch. Like, does that match change much for you?
I mean, to me, it shows what I said last show. Anybody is knock offable.
Yeah.
In that weight class, and to me, there's all these conflicting head-to-heads. In crystal ball, I'm still going to have Luke ahead of Dean.
Yeah.
Can somebody be picked off? Yeah. And it just happened. But what's the odds? What are the odds? Like, I think that Dean Peterson on a given day can beat Luke Lillidahl. I also think that Luke Lillidahl is less upset prone than Dean.
Yeah.
So while I would take maybe somebody to knock off Lillidahl that you wouldn't expect, I still think that Dean could lose to that you didn't expect. So I would have like Lillidahl 3 or 4 and Dean like 7 or blood round. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep. Makes sense. A couple more nuggets about this duel.
Yeah. Well, I think we should talk a little bit about Bo Bassett and the great reception they got. And there was people in the crowd with Bo heads and Bo shirts and Bo had a photo shoot and stuff. And I told you guys months ago that Rutgers is in play for Bo. And I'm not saying that that's going to be the final destination, but I'm saying that it is a real possibility and that they are really in the mix. And that's what we're seeing.
I think it's Penn State, Oklahoma State, Ohio State. But I agree that I think some of these other schools, Iowa, Rutgers, if they throw a big enough Hail Mary,
he ain't going.
I don't disagree. I think it's Penn State, Ohio State, Oklahoma State.
I think it's Penn State, Oklahoma State with an outside shot of Rutgers. I truly believe that Rutgers is in position to get them.
Did you
with any of the non-blue bloods?
Before I mention a couple of my points, did you finish your Davis Shawver? I know I kind of cut you off with Peterson Lillidahl.
No. Yeah, I'm finished with that. I mean, Shawver's a guy that he can. To me, he's a lights on guy. To me, he's and not that the lights weren't on in a dual meet with Penn State, but I fully expect him to be an absolute pain in the ass force at Big Ten championships at NCAAs.
So two points that I had here. Number one, Josh Barr is a psychopath. So if you didn't see the match, it's 0-0 after the first. He rides him out for the entire second period. He takes bottom to start the third. It's 0-0 heading to the third. He gets an escape, and then the Maniac scores 7 takedowns in like a minute 20. There's 41 seconds left. And he gets the tech 22-6. He absolutely broke Poznanski and just
what's his name?
John Paz.
Poznanski. He wrestled Poznanski in Piscataway.
So he listen, podcast of the year. Leave me alone. Podcast of the year winner. Come on. This is not the podcast to pick on names. All right, so Josh Barr is an absolute maniac, and that match has swayed me. Spoiler alert, I'm picking him to beat Buchanan next week. I am just
Wow.
Barr is every week. I'm like, all right, you know what? Barr has solidified himself. I can't be more impressed. And then he goes out and does something like that, like scoring 7 takedowns in the third period to get a tech. And I'm like, yeah, I'm picking this guy, especially in the Bryce Jordan Center. We'll talk more about that match in the duel.
Well,
Lastly,
for sure.
I got a question for you because Bashad
I mean,
and I.
to me, my evaluation is Josh Barr just keeps jumping levels. He keeps rising in the consciousness of like everybody's becoming a star, and also his ceiling keeps going up, and his ceiling's going up to a point where you're picking him over Buchanan. I like to keep things like I like to not overreact. So on one hand, he scores 7 takedowns in a minute 19. On the other hand, he did not score a point in the first period. So pros and cons.
On another point, major pin, 1 OT win against Stephen Little, tech, pin, tech. Like he just, and by the way, not for nothing, just, and again, we're going to talk about this. I'm going to save it for the show. I'm saving it for the show.
Okay. Little Rock 29.
Hold on. Sorry, hold on. One more final note, because Baschamania and I were talking about this earlier. Over, under, All-Americans Rutgers should have for their season to be a success. I think the number is over 2.5.
Over 2.5? I think it's 2.
I think that for Rutgers' season to be a success, I think Shaver needs to AA. I think Dean Peterson needs to AA.
Yeah.
So that's 2. And I'll tell you what, with Bastida out, with who's other heavyweight that's out?
Younger's out. Nathan Taylor from Lehigh.
Oh, who's Campbell's heavyweight?
Gadiali's out.
He's out. Like, so Slavakuski really has slotted himself in with those guys being out to really. He's already All-American before. He's ranked 7th right now. I would think I think that's why I think over 2.5 should be the number. I think.
Yeah, but hold on though. 3 is their max. So you're saying they have to max out for the season to be a success?
No.
Number one.
Well,
number two. You're talking about 3 bubble guys. You're talking about 3 bubble guys need to max out for the season to be a success. Number 1, I don't agree with that. Number 2, you're talking about how many times does Rutgers had 3 AAs? You're talking about not a success. You're talking about historic.
Okay, I'm saying a historic season, Rutgers having 3 All-Americans. So is the number over-under for you 1.5 to the 2.5? We're talking 1 here. Like, what's your over-under? That's what I'm asking you. I asked if 2.5 was the number.
I mean, what's your history?
You think it's?
I think 2. I think they have 2, and they have a very successful, and they have a success.
Okay.
Little Rock 29, Oregon State 14, Maximo winner, Nasir Bailey with a tech. Ethan Stiles beat Jordan Williams. Ethan Stiles, who I told you in the beginning of the year, I had him bubble I had him as a surprise. I don't think a lot of people thought of Ethan Stiles coming into this season as being a factor at all, but I had him at 57. He started at 57. Now he comes down. Now he lost to Willishell in his first match at 49, but Willishell's he's a tough nut to crack. Willishell's crafty. So Stiles comes down. He loses to Willishell, but then he 2 days later beats Jordan Williams 5-1. Yeah, that's about it for that duel. Oklahoma State 22, Northern Iowa, the big one of the day, so to speak. Troy Spratley, a 10-5 winner. Julian Farber majored Cale Hughes. Now, Hughes is another guy. I said going into the duel that Farber can win this match. A lot of people didn't think so. I said he could, and also said to win the duel, they needed it. They really needed it. And so It starts at 25. Spratley wins Farber with a major over Cale Hughes. Nobody saw that coming. Okay, so now things get a little interesting. Cale Happel beats Jamison in overtime. Now it gets interesting. Colin Real Buto over Carter Young, 6'4". Now it's really interesting. Northern Iowa wins 3 of the first 4. Caleb Fish, Ryder Downey. Ryder Downey ranked higher. You need to have this one. You need to have one of the next 2. And Fish got it done in OT versus Downey. Amin, no doubter over Jack Thompson, 10-2. I thought Amin overall looked much better this weekend. And so now it's going to it makes Northern Iowa's path really uphill because you lost 2 that you probably could have had, including one in overtime. Dean Hamidi beats Jared Sima 16-4. Kekais and Majors plot.
Which, by the way, the plot thing is so crazy to me. Dustin Plott has 5 losses over the past year, and all 5 are Parker Kekkaisen.
Yeah.
That's so crazy to me because we were talking on the show last week. If you tuned out for the football talk, you missed it. I had said that Oklahoma State has 3 guys ranked 3rd in the country with 2 national champs. And I wasn't thinking about it at the time, but they also have a guy ranked 4th with 2 guys ahead of him at 41. So you got 4 guys in the top 4 with 2 national champs ahead of them. Crazy. And this is just more weight behind that when you've got, listen, it's hard to, keep beating guys over and over. The fact that Parker has continued to, I'd say not widen the gap, but, he beats him so soundly. Now he majored him 15-4, and if you go back, it's he beat him 8-3 to Cliff Keen. So he widened the gap there. Last year at NCAAs, he beat him 14-5. Last year at Big 12s, he beat him 14-5. So it's and then early in the duel, he beat him 12-6. So it's just crazy, man. It's to be stuck behind somebody like that. I was going to tweet out. I don't think I did. Can you think of somebody who, if you look at Plott and how talented he is, when was the last time somebody was as talented as him and stuck behind in that same scenario where you have...
There has been guys historically where it's man...
I was thinking about the Burroughs, Taylor Dake, that whole era.
Yeah, but there's been times in college, I'd have to look back, but there is times it's this guy and then it's this guy, but he's not going to beat him. He just can't beat him. That was Saturday, or that was Friday. Saturday, not a whole heck of a lot going on. Chattanooga over VMI, Cornell over Harvard. A couple lineup changes there. Unger's going down to 25. Tyler Ferreira in at 33. Tyler Ferreira was a big boarder, but he's young. Cornell 39-3 over Harvard, 35-3 over Brown. Binghamton over Harvard. Binghamton over Brown by a point. Northern Illinois 21-20 over Ohio. Iowa 24. Ohio State 13. Joey Cruz looked really good in a win over McCrowan. McCrowan, kind of frustrating, but I mean, honestly, nobody thought coming into college that McCrowan was going to be a factor, and he is certainly a factor. But in this one, Joey Cruz, who's been wrestling really well, got the upper hand there, and now you kind of got to start wondering if Joey Cruz is a guy who could sneak on the podium. He's been wrestling really well.
He looked so good. Did you already do crystal ball? You said, where'd you put him?
I tinkered around with it. I didn't finalize it, but let's see. I do have 25 basically done, and I have Cruz. Where do I have Cruz? I don't have him in here. I actually do not have him in here yet. So no, I don't have him reaching around to 16.
Interesting. How about Ben Davino?
Ben Davino looked good. Now, the story here was that We thought we were getting Ayala versus Buzakis. We got neither. We got Ben DeVino against Kian Hernandez, a true freshman out of Montana. Uh,
Huge
Drake a
for
little
me.
dinged up.
I took Iowa -6.5, and as soon as I saw Drake on the lineup, I go, I don't like that.
So Drake should be back. I expect him. It just needs rest. I expect him back for Penn State this weekend. Although that's my hunch. That's not
Well,
based on any information.
Brands, I'll give Brands a little credit here. They were kind of poking and prodding him in the press conference about will Drake wrestle against Penn State, and he basically said, Drake's one hell of a kid, and he was kind of trying to hold back a little bit. And he's like, I'm a little bit uncomfortable, but I don't want to speak for Drake, but I think he'll go, yeah. So,
Yeah.
he was basically saying that it sounds like Drake's gonna wrestle. If I had to guess, I'd say Drake was maybe close to going this weekend, and they said, let's not rush you back if you're dealing with this.
Yeah, and I think they've had a pretty good idea that they'd win the duel with or without him against Ohio State. Mendez tech block. Parco looked really good against D'Amelio, 8-3. Although I didn't think that D'Amelio looked really sharp. Ja'Cory over Sasso, 10-5. That match got fun in the third. There was some upper body stuff going on.
I alluded to this earlier, and I saved it for now. I tweeted out, man, Ja'Cory looked tough. And I had some bozo tweeting me how, well, that's only because Sammy Sasso isn't his true self. And then somebody argued with him. Somebody said, well, Sammy, this is that. And this guy said, well, that's not what Basch said. Basch said Teamer looked great. And I said, no. I specifically said Teamer looked tough. And I said that because Teamer had 3 great takedowns. And he even said after the duel in the interview, this was his first time wrestling live since his injury. I don't know how true that is. Kind of crazy. Kind of crazy if you haven't wrestled live, but nonetheless, he hasn't been on the mat for that long. That's probably for sure. So to come out in your return to the mat, listen, I don't care if Sammy Sasso isn't as good as he once was because of everything he went through. He's still very tough, and I thought Teamer's takedowns looked great, and I thought Teamer looked tough after being off the mat.
Even if you don't consider Sammy Sasso to be the Sammy Sasso of old, which he's not, you're allowed to think somebody looked good against an inferior opponent.
And by the way, I used tough.
You're allowed to think somebody looked good against somebody he's supposed to be.
To get 3 takedowns on your return to the mat, and I thought, it's like there was times where you could tell that Teamer's not like he normally looks a little bit better conditioning wise. You could tell he was returning to the mat. You could tell he wasn't like in the groove. So I thought he battled through the match. I thought he got 3 solid takedowns. I thought it was a good win for him.
Yeah, I did. I mean, when a guy returns for injury, you want to see how they look, and he looked really good. He moved really well. Caliendo majored Patty 11-3. Here's an interesting one. Karchla over Kennedy 7-3, 2 takedowns to 0. I thought Karchla looked really good.
He did, man.
Kennedy's tough to get a read on, man. Like at this stage, what Patrick looks like is like he destroys anyone not in the conversation, but against podium conversation guys, it's a little bit of tough going for him. I think Kennedy's certainly good enough to get over that hump. I love Patrick Kennedy. But right now it's like he crushes anybody not podium contender. He has to jump a level. Not jump a level, but he has to break the ice on the guys that are podium contenders. That was my view.
It's funny because Carson Karchla, I've always been high on him, and when I'm high on him, he has a disappointing performance. And then when I'm kind of like, Karchla hasn't really, lived up to the expectation and the anticipation. And then it's like, now he's, 8-0 on the year. He's looked great. He's got a win now over Patrick Kennedy, by far his best win of the year. You know, he's beaten Aiden Riggins earlier in the year. He beat Jackson Turley, but this is by far his best win of the year. And you're suddenly all of a sudden saying, when was the last time?
I think part of it, everybody thought highly of Karchla, and it's just like he's always injured. It's like he's never going to reach his potential. Is he ever going to be that guy again? He's always so dinged up. I mean, he looked great. He looked like he was back.
Yeah, and so that's like, man, I feel like I'm finally starting to get back to that point of where, like, I'm going to start picking him. I think, Big Tens looking ahead a little bit are going to be fun. I think this weekend, I don't think he's going to beat Levi Haynes, but Levi Haynes, I'm sorry. I'm thinking Iowa, Penn State. Yeah, never mind. My brain's all over the place today. But Carson Karchla, he's looking better than he has in a long time, I think.
He really is. Gabe Arnold over Ryder Rogoski. Gabe was in on legs like a gazillion times, and somehow Ryder Rogoski really slippery. Didn't give it up. They go to overtime, and Rogoski tried this silly outside trip that got him totally off balance, and Gabe capitalized. That was the story of the whole match. A 4-1 OT, Gabe Arnold.
Gabe was pretty excited after that win. He was another one who had a pretty big celebration. And to be honest, listen, I didn't hate it. You win a big match at home in front of your crowd. I honestly don't hate a big celebration.
I don't either. I don't hate a big celebration in an overtime match against a solid opponent in a kind of not a rivalry duel, but a Big Ten duel. Mm-hmm. But the juxtaposition is really weird in that you go from an overtime win against Ryder Rogoski, who's ranked like 20th, to calling out a 4-time national champ. I mean,
we'll talk about that.
If you like two things, like they don't jive. Like if you think that you're beating Carter Starachi, but also celebrate a win over number 20 is like I don't get it.
Jason Nolf kind of changed my perspective on that a couple of years ago, because I remember thinking Tyler Berger was a clown, not him as a person, just the action when he called out Jason Nolf. And he said, next up, I'm taking out Jason Nolf in NCAAs. And I'm like, what a clown thing to say. You're never going to beat Nolf, this and that. And I like Berger. He's been on the podcast. He's a great guy. Like, this is years ago. Yeah, I love Tyler Berger. He's a great guy. Go listen to when he was on Baschamania. It was a great conversation. But remember at the time being like, why would this guy tweet that? You're obviously not going to beat Nolf. And I remember talking to Nolf about it. We talked about it at length. And he's like, listen, Nolf didn't hate it at all, because he's like, you have to have the confidence that you're going to beat somebody. So it's one thing you can agree or disagree on calling somebody out, but you do have to have the confidence that you can beat them. You can't win an overtime match and thinking,
I know, but I'm putting on a psychoanalysis hat here, okay? And I'm not hating on Gabe, but Gabe is one of my favorite guys in the sport. Ben Keeter is one of my favorite guys. Like, I love these kids, right? But I'm probably overanalyzing this stuff. But number one, Tyler Berger was a Big Ten champ. Tyler Berger was ranked clearly at that time, and not even close, number 2 in the country. Tyler Berger was already an All-American. Yep. Tyler Berger also didn't cheer like crazy after he beat number 20, right? And so, to me, it's sort of a forced thing.
I don't think
I understand that you have to believe, and that was my reaction to Tyler Berger calling out Jason Nolf. Like, he's just trying to make himself believe, right? And that's what I think Gabe is trying to make himself believe.
By the way, Carter Starachi with an all-time clinic on the response. I mean, here Gabe Arnold comes out and says, Next up, he basically Babe Ruths a guy. Calls a shot. Next up, I'm taking out Carter Starachi. Be there Friday. The reporter, Locked on Nittany Lion, posted the video. Willie tweeted it. It's like, the guy said, so Carter, Gabe Arnold said this, and that. What do you think? And Carter goes, oh, is Gabe the starter? I thought it was that other kid. I think the other kid's a better wrestler. I'm going to prepare for him. Like, I don't know if Carter did that on purpose, but just an all-time response. If he did it on purpose, to not even, like, smirk or break a smirk and just do it so in line and just, like, stoically, bravo. Like, fantastic. But, man, I don't hate – listen, I think no matter what, you're going to have – again – we're in a different time where I'm not saying that, like, if I were these guys, I would do this or that. I have no clue. I would probably overreact all the time. But I do understand.
No, I mean, hey, part of their job is to get fans excited, to believe in themselves, to make themselves believe. And part of our job is to analyze it. Right?
And I don't think that
I'm not hating. I'm just analyzing.
I don't think Iowa fans are sitting there like, Iowa fans are playing into that reaction from that overtime win. Look should he beat the guy more soundly? Yes. Did he have to dig down deep and get the overtime win? And it was a very clutch win. Absolutely. You should celebrate it. I think the fans bought into the celebration just like the Rutgers fans did for Dean Peterson. So, no, listen, I don't think he's got a shot to beat Carter Starachi, but I don't hate I am so sick and tired of the lack of marketing and hype in the sport. I'll take this over nothing. I'll 100% take this all day. Certainly. Thank you, Gabe. Thank you, Carter. I'll 100% take this.
I wish there was more of it. Buchanan over Shoemate by Tech. Keeter beats Feldman. Really interesting result. A lot of, kind of like what I said about Kennedy. Keeter beats the guys he's supposed to be, but he needs to jump. He needs to get one under his belt against some of these All-American guys. And there's been a lot of, even among Iowa fans and Iowa message boards, like Keeter's just not there yet kind of thing. Well, Keeter just beat Feldman. So
this was
huge win for Keeter. And, it was kind of different. It was kind of a different formula for Ben, who Ben likes to take a lot of shots and he gets stuck underneath, which is what happened with Luffman a bunch of times, and he's sort of getting stuck underneath a lot. And this match, he wrestled like a heavyweight, really. Number one. Now, part of that was that it was Feldman being active, Feldman taking the attacks more than Ben. But Ben didn't make any mistakes on his own offense, and he was able to counter for a takedown for the difference in the bout.
This was by far Ben's biggest win of his college career. I think this is the first top 10 guy he's beat. He lost to Luke Luffman. He lost to Younger Bastida. He lost to Kirk last year. So by far Ben's biggest win. If you're an Iowa fan, man, that's got to be a huge win. And it's funny because
it shows that it is possible for Ben to get on the podium this year. A lot of people might have had Ben losing round of 16, losing blood round, and I will probably have him blood round guy in crystal ball, but it's certainly this win proves in play, right? He lost to Luffman in a close one on a riding time point in a match with no takedowns. He beats Feldman in a one takedown match. So it is Keeter very clearly has a path to probably low AA status. Drexel over Ryder 21-12. Northern Iowa over Oklahoma. Now, what's really interesting here is that Cale Happel beats Jamison. Moshe Schwartz beats Happel. Really interesting there. So, kind of a lot of parity in the second half of 41 after you go through. Cale Happel beat Hardy several times, but because of Happel's sort of other losses like this to Moshe Schwartz, even though Happel beats Hardy more times, I kind of keep Hardy in that other tier and Happel the next tier, but below that, there's a lot of parity.
By the way, I understand this wasn't the toughest opponent for him, but Ryder Downey did respond from his loss to Caleb Fish with a beautiful 15-0 tech. If you're going to respond from a tough loss, you can't ask for a better match. I don't care who the opponent is.
Yeah. Gavin Sachs with a good win too. That in the same breath, yep. Gavin Sachs beating Jared Sima, a very tough opponent after losing to Gatan. That's a good response by 100%. Sachs. Okay, that does it for Saturday, Sunday.
Well, look, you got to give one more. Look at 97. What? Look at that rebound.
Yeah, Volker with a win over
putting up 22 points.
Yeah. Sunday, Clarion over Kent State, Clarion over Long Island over Kent State, Minnesota 29-12 over Northwestern with some really good wins in there. Vance Vombauer, Tech, Chris Cannon. But the ones I liked were Tommy Askey over a very tough Trevor Chumbley. Andrew Sparks over a very tough Max Mayfield. Isaiah Salazar over Evan Bates, who's been gaining ground and very quietly establishing himself as like a top 15 guy. So I thought there was some really quietly solid performances in there by Minnesota. Bakersfield over American, Campbell over Central Michigan, Michigan over Indiana, Bo Mantanona over Tyler Lillard. Yeah, that's 22-13, Michigan over Indiana. Missouri over West Virginia. Strickenberger beats Gage Walker, who's having a pretty good true freshman year. Edmond over Jordan Titus. We'll get to that in a second. Peyton Hall over Cam Steed. Conley wins. The back half of that duel, there's just so many injuries and stuff. But let's talk about Josh Edmond, Jordan Titus. Both guys throw their headgears into the middle of the mat. One gets a penalty point, one doesn't. It's like, what are we doing here? Why are you giving one guy a penalty and one guy not? Why do we have penalties at all for tossing a headgear? There was nothing malicious about it. Nothing in those headgear tosses said this is unsportsmanlike. Like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, you got to what are the referees thinking? What are you thinking? Are you just trying to interject? What are you doing? What about that was unsportsmanlike? What about that was out of bounds? Like, grow up, loser.
And listen, they got to – let's take this out of the ref's hands, because I don't even want it to be a thing where it's like the ref deciding should he call it or should he not because it's in the rule book. Let's just take it out of the rule book that if you toss your headgear – listen, unless you take your headgear and launch it at somebody's face, you should not get a penalty.
Hold on. That's why the rule exists. The rule exists in case you throw the headgear up into the stands. The rule exists in case you throw it at an opponent. The rule exists in case you do something stupid. But idiotic referees have taken that judgment call and made it so any time that a headgear is airborne, it is subject to a penalty point. This is 150% on the referee's judgment. They are idiots.
No, correct.
It is stupid.
The fact that this ref...
you can't take it out of the referee's hands. Yeah, that rule has got to be in there in case I take my headgear off and pelt it at the opposing coach.
Okay, so let's clarify the rule. Let's clarify the rule. Listen.
The referees suck.
Listen. Let's clarify the rule then with bylaws or something that says...
Why are we at this stage in evolution?
Okay, so wait, this is
denotative.
This is where you're wrong.
This in phone. No, you cannot.
This is where you're wrong.
Idiocy. You cannot erase idiocy from the world. What you can do is admit that it's idiocy. That ref is stupid for calling that a penalty point.
Listen, this is where I disagree with you so much. When you have something like...
I mean, you can disagree, but you're wrong.
Why can't we refine the rule? Why can't we not make it so opinionated? I'm not wrong. Don't leave it up to the refs to be
subjectivity. I'll tell you why. Because subjectivity exists in the world and in every facet of every sport. Subjectivity exists. Subjectivity is necessary.
Listen, the fact that you just want to say refs do better and not change the rule at all is crazy to me. Let's refine the rule a little bit so it's more clear. This does not need to be so subjective that a ref thinks he tossed it maliciously, this guy didn't. That is leaving way too much.
He literally said that.
I know.
He literally said
That's what I'm saying. That's leaving way too much up to the ref. That's leaving way too much.
Then, Justin. Write the rule. You tell me the rule that's going to go in the books.
I don't know it. I'm not a rules guy, but you can absolutely refine it. I don't make the laws. I can tell you a law is stupid.
You're going to refine it? You're going to refine it to say what?
I'm not. Oh, my God. Sometimes dealing with you, Willie, is very difficult. You're telling me on one hand, refs do better. On another, a rule that is so subjective cannot be refined at all? That's crazy.
I'm just asking what the rule's going to read like.
I'll take time to think of it if it makes you feel better.
Well, okay.
I'm not going to make a rule on the spot without thinking about it.
There are things that are subjective in sports.
Agreed. But there's things that...
If you agree that there is going to be subjectivity beyond anything that you can write in words, then how are you going to legislate ruling out subjectivity?
I'm not saying there's not going to be some subjectivity. I'm saying you should be able to refine it to a degree that takes some of it away.
That ref just showed you that you can call anything you want at any time. And no matter how you write it, you're not going to be able to rule. I mean, unless you say the headgear can never come off.
First of all, get rid of headgear. Let's solve that. Get rid of headgear. It's stupid. Get rid of headgear.
Headgear is so stupid. Penn beat Hoffer 39-7. Oklahoma State 27-12 on the biggest duel.
Also, wait, we also didn't talk about how fact not only is the rule itself stupid, stop taking away team points. Get rid of every rule in the sports book that eliminates a team point in wrestling. That is the dumbest thing in wrestling, the fact that you can take away team points. Imagine if a roughing the passer call resulted in you get 1 point taken off the team score. That is the dumbest thing of the whole thing.
Dumb. Stupid. Unprecedented. It doesn't happen in other sports.
By the way, did you see Tin Hat real quick? Tin Hat Minute. Did you see the NFL, because it's all rigged, did you see them sneaking in a new rule yesterday? The refs now said they can just give you the touchdown. Basically, if he jumped over the center one more time, he was going to give him the touchdown.
They snuck in a new rule. I don't know that they snuck in a new rule. Because it was obviously on the books, because if you listen to the broadcast, the rules analyst said that before the official announced that.
But
they're making
it apparent before the Super Bowl.
It has to be on the books. It's very obviously a rule. Just like it was very obvious that the tuck rule existed before anybody knew the tuck rule existed.
All right, my minute's up.
Yeah. Oklahoma State 27-12. Spratley beats Perryman 20-10. Evan Frost beats Whitcraft 9-4. Jacob Frost beats Tegan Jamison.
Great win for Jacob Frost. Great win.
Jacob Frost has 2 great wins this weekend. And I don't know. You have to think that Etchemendia is the better option, but man, I can't be more impressed with Jacob Frost. And if Etchemendia has a tough time getting down, if he doesn't perform well getting down, if he can't get down, ISU certainly has another good option. And man, to think about Iowa State just has a log jam from 33 to 65, 33 to 57. Just incredible amount of options and talent. And I know this is way, way far in advance, but both these teams, Oklahoma State and Iowa State, you're going to see a lot of guys shift up in weights next year. Cale Hughes had a rough time making 33 this weekend. There's no way Cale Hughes is going to be 33 next year. There's no way Evan Frost is going to be 33 next year. And so I think both Oklahoma State and Iowa State are going to see their 33s move up to 41, their 41s move up to 49, their 49s move up to 57. But it's interesting how both these teams are composed. Pinero over Carter Young 4-2. There again, I thought you're talking about Ja'Cory Teamer. You're saying, oh, he looked great, and then idiots respond, well, it's Sammy's not himself. I thought Pinero Johnson in a 4-2 match in which he only got one takedown against Carter Young, who's not been an All-American yet. I thought Pinero Johnson looked awesome. I thought he looked as energetic as he ever did. I thought he attacked more than he ever did. You can win a one takedown match and still look great, still pass the eyeball test. And I thought that Pinero Johnson looked one of the best versions the best version he has in quite a long time.
Yep.
Cody Chittum beat Caleb Fish in a really weird match.
Yeah, I didn't watch that match. It was about, I think, when the Bills game was starting. I heard there was a little discrepancy with the Caleb Fish. Maybe there was a takedown.
It was officiated awfully and on both sides of the coin. I thought Caleb Fish just did a bunch of stalling on top to ride, your classic riding to ride and not attempting much of anything on top. And these stupid rules, again, when you're trying to make something denotative and not connotative, when you're trying to make something black and white and not gray, what you end up with is a terrible product of Caleb Fish riding to keep him down and not really working on stuff and like just boring legalized stalling.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really terrible. And so I thought it was a horrible job on the refs swallowing their whistle and not calling a subjective call that we all recognize as stalling. To flip the coin, Caleb Fish had a clear takedown that was so clear, and to add an insult to injury, they review it and they uphold no takedown. It was clear. And throw that reaction time bullshit. Like, okay, I understand reaction time, but if you review that and you still call that reaction time, you're terrible. You're bad. That is a horrible call. Get the fuck out of here. That is a takedown, and everybody knows it. And for you to stick by that call shows that you don't know what a takedown is. You don't know what's reaction time and beyond reaction time.
Refs?
You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy, Justin, is that you say I missed it because the Bills game was getting good. Two things happened almost simultaneously. That is a clear takedown. It's reviewed and upheld as not a takedown. In the Bills game, dude caught the ball. It clearly hit the ground. They reviewed it and still upheld the call.
Preach. Do these refs ever call you out when you see them in the tunnel?
No, they usually look away in pain. Listen, this isn't personal. I don't even. Oh yeah, I do know who was on the call for it. He's a long time seasoned ref. That's generally good, but that is bad. It's not personal. I don't hate the guy. I think he's typically pretty good, but that is bad. Yeah. So Chittum over Amin 4-2, Amin over Riggins, Hamidi over Gatan 20-4, Plot over Bachman, Serber injury default from Sawyer Bartelt, Hendrickson over Herrera, Oklahoma State 27-12. So that was a big one on Sunday. Nebraska over Basch lost money. Rutgers over Illinois 16-15. Bird beat Shaver. Webster over Clark. Hare over Kraser. Bronigal over Paz. Slavakuski over Luffman. 4-1 to cause the final score 16-15. Rutgers beats a top 10 team for the first time in 5 years. Bucknell 21-13 over Army West Point in a duel that was much better than any hype or the lack thereof of hype. Bucknell won a lot of good close matches. 21-13 over Army. Stanford beat Virginia 34-9. That was your weekend.
I need to try to figure out a way. Maybe I can have ChatGPT rewrite the rule that eliminates some of the subjectivity. Just eliminate some of it and see what AI comes up with.
Of headgear tossing.
I agree that no matter what, you're going to have subjectivity. That's why refs exist. There's always
who could look at that? Who can look at the action of the headgear toss and say,
What if? What if?
Who could? No. Answer the question. Answer the question. Who could possibly justify looking at that headgear toss, either of those headgear tosses, and saying, that's just unsportsmanlike. That's out of bounds.
I'll give you.
No sentient being can justify that.
I'll not this one, but I'll give you an example of where it could potentially be changed. What if you allow underhand, no overhand? You're allowed if you underhand toss your headgear, you're fine. But if you throw that thing like this, you're done.
You know what you're trying to do? What you're saying without realizing it is you're trying to codify idiocy. You're trying to make sure refs aren't idiots. What if
I just want to take some of it. I just want to take some of it out of their hands.
What if I underhand wing it? What if I'm wrestling for Oklahoma State and I'm wrestling Michigan and I underhand wing it, trying to bowl a strike as fast as possible? I just rip it underhand at Kevin Jackson.
All right. Okay. What if
now you got to go back and write the rule again?
Okay. If your headgear hits somebody, that's a violation. If it hits somebody or something other than the mat.
So
if you throw your headgear overhand or underhand.
We're spending a lot of time. We're spending a lot of time trying to rewrite a rule so that refs don't make idiotic calls.
Hold on, but okay, what do you think?
Why don't we get rid of refs and we'll just have robots?
Listen, we're trying out the NFL. Last year they tried doing laser spotting so we can get rid of the stupid chain gang. Because Josh Allen had a first down yesterday. That was ludicrous that the one ref saw it and was standing right in front of him, and they still didn't call it a first down. So I'm not opposed to that. But what if you toss your headgear in any manner and it hits somebody or something, that's a penalty. If you toss it...
I just why can't it be? I just ask that refs not be stupid.
Because you're never going to get that. You're always going to have dumb people. You're always going to have subjectivity to an extreme. It's just... try to do as much as you can to eliminate it, because again, I'm just saying there's might be.
Can you just say? How about we just say it was a terrible call and move on?
It was an absolutely terrible call, but it's happening more and more. The stupid headgear throw point deduction. It was absolutely ludicrous that he decided one guy did it maliciously and one guy did not. Absolutely stupid and ludicrous. 100%. I'm just talking about the bigger picture. The headgear throw point deduction penalty, it's also stupid. I agree with you. You can't just take the headgear and launch it at somebody.
Here's a little frustration, too. Is this is nothing new. This has been going on for decades. Mikey Labriola a couple years ago beat somebody and he sort of spiked his headgear, but not very hard. But he spiked, and they took a team point away, and everybody went up in arms. How come? How come we are seeing this every year, at all levels, high school, college? We're seeing this every year, and every year everybody gets up in arms. But at no point in the offseason do any of the coaches on the rules panel, on the rules committee, and none of the referees on the referees committee, should we make a change? No. What did you forget what happened? Like no referee, no coach that is on these committees is taking notes. Hey, things we have to address in the offseason. But then they get to May, they get to June, they get to July when they're having these meetings and it's not brought up. Fix it. It's nothing new.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Amateur shit.
Is that the show?
Go Bills.
No, we're done. Bills lost. But Bills are.
All right.
And by the way, and just to be clear, wrestling fans, tune out if you want. Football talk warning. I promise you, I'm not watching the Super Bowl. I could care less. I could care less to see the Chiefs and the Eagles. My son's birthday party is that day. We're gonna do his birthday party. We're gonna pack. We got a 5 a.m. flight on Monday. I'm not watching this stupid game. I'm not watching it.
The frustrating thing to me is, and I'll be the first to admit it, all this referee talk, whether it's wrestling, but football is really bad. Football is really bad is because over and over and over again, they can make these game-changing calls. They can on a first down play, on a crucial first down play, they can call the Redskins for a face mask, which changes the entire complexion of the game. And guess what? The face mask was not touched ever. Ever. The face mask was not touched, but they call it. Okay? They can make these game-changing plays. The Buffalo Bills, the Chiefs get a reception on the 4-yard line where the ball clearly hit the ground. Game-changing, game-impacting.
How about when you have a guy, when Josh Allen's going...
These terrible game-changing calls can happen over and over and over again. And they change the game. It's not even fair. And you know what? I go back and I watch it every time. Why do I watch it when I know it's like, at the best, it's a terrible product that is unfair. At worst, it's scripted. And here's the problem. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch
it next year. Of course. Listen, I put out a post this morning on Basch Solutions that basically said, like, because I've been posting, like, pictures of our kids with Bills gear on and stuff. And it's like, you know, the NFL, although it should be sports, feels like more entertainment than sports. And it feels like, you know, this had a bad end of the movie. And I was talking to somebody, like, they're like, okay, this was they're like, okay, you've calmed down. Bills lost. Move on. It is what it is. Do you really think it's rigged? I said, absolutely. I said, I think I was talking to Chenzo about it. And I'm like, because he's like, how do you feel today as a Bills fan? I can't imagine it. And I said, honestly, why when the Chiefs score, not Travis Kelce, the Chiefs score, do you show Taylor Swift in her box? Why when Travis Kelce only has two catches that he's up there at the end with the trophy? I'm like, there's just something that doesn't sit well about all this when your NFL is a money-making machine. That's why Goodell, that overpaid scumbag, gets $70 million a year because he makes a lot of people a lot of money. The NFL sells a lot of viewership. Listen, I'm over it.
I don't know. I don't know that's rigged. I don't know that's scripted. I don't know. If you're telling me that sometimes they do some of that stuff to help out, yeah, maybe I can get on board with it. But the bottom line is, it ain't changing because people like me will still watch.
Oh, I'm going to watch it next year. I'm not watching the Super Bowl. I'll be back in the fall.
Let's end with this. Can we end with this? The Redskins will draft 30th. No, the Redskins will draft 29th. The Bills will draft 30th Who do you want? What do you want? What position do you want? What's the biggest need for the Buffalo Bills?
First of all, just for the naysayers, I'm purely speculating, so calm down. Don't just stop DMing me. Leave me alone. The game's over. Let me think the NFL's rigged, even if it's not. So shut up. I had to delete half my tweets today because the worst thing about social media, especially Twitter, is like you tweet something in real time and then it's over the next day, and Twitter brings it back up to the top of the feed for somebody, and they're just seeing it for the first time the next day. And so now I'm getting all fresh responses, and it's like, I'm over it. So leave me alone. Let me think that it's rigged. I don't care if it is or if it isn't. It's probably not. Goodell, if you're listening, I don't like you, but I'm not commenting further on if it's rigged or not. Anyways, back to the draft. I could be wrong, but didn't the Bills give up their first-round draft pick this year? I don't think we have a first round draft.
For what?
I don't know. Let me see. Bills draft order 2025.
Well, the draft order.
Oh no, we're picking 30th. Okay, we're picking 30th.
You should pick 30th. You had a better record than us. We should pick 29th. No. Oh, so, why are you picking?
You're 29th. We're 30th.
Yeah. Yes, correct. That's my brain froze.
I thought we traded our first.
I want secondary. I want secondary so bad. I want corners and I want offensive linemen. What do you want?
Our defense. Josh Allen. Listen, we got Josh Allen and Joe Brady coming back, and this year we proved that even without a star receiver, Josh Allen will get it in the hands of whoever is open and can make the play. I think Keon Coleman is going to be an absolute star. I think our defense, we absolutely. I see a lot of
experts. I see a lot of so-called experts saying, "Man, the Redskins really need a corner, but in the first round, man, if you could get Jaden Daniels just one more weapon. If you could get a wide receiver, their wide receiver outside of their receiving core outside of Terry McLaurin is not good. They could flirt with a top flight wide receiving prospect. And I see the same thing being said about Josh Allen. Here's the thing: Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels are so good, they'll make Mac Hollins good. They will make. They will make De'Ami Brown good. Don't give me a wide receiver. Give me a corner. Let's stop somebody.
Yeah. You know, I think it was actually Zach Ryder last year who told me the Bills should get Keon Coleman. I forgot at what point in the draft. And he was right. They did, and it's worked out great. Yeah, I looked at a couple mock drafts this morning, of course. I saw some with defensive linemen. I saw some with a corner. So we'll see. We should have Chenzo on because he knows that stuff pretty well. All right, that's the show. Friend. We will do a crystal ball review and Penn State Iowa preview tomorrow or Wednesday. And then I am planning on going to Penn State Iowa unless something happens. I'm planning on being there.
I think I had a little bit of a medical scare, kind of, but I gotta get blood work done. That's what I'm trying to say. But I think I'm gonna try to make it to the Del Barton duel. The Del Barton Blair on Friday should be a really great environment for high school wrestling. So I'm in Idaho now. I think I'm flying back. Gonna go to my doctor's there, and then try to hit Del Barton Blair on Friday. Which means, Saturday I will probably go to Penn State, Iowa.
I think you have your days wrong. Isn't Del Barton Thursday? Because I know the Penn State Iowa is Friday night. So either you have two duels at the same time. But I thought you had said...
Which means I should probably get a flight right now.
Yeah,
love you.
All right, comment, subscribe, like. Thanks, guys.
Fellas, get ready. Get ready to bring it. You puss. You big puss.
He tuned out an hour ago. He jumped back into the deer stand. He's not. Oh, I'm looking up this duel real quick to make sure for you. Yeah, it's Thursday at 7, Del Barton Blair. All right, that's the show. One last time till September. Go Bills.